So today we're going to look at how to convert a fraction to a decimal, and we're going to do that by dividing the numerator by the denominator. So 4 is going to be divided by 5. Now 5 can't fit into 4, so we're going to add our decimal point and 0, bring our decimal point up, and 5 into 40 fits 8 times. 8 times 5 is 40. When we do our subtraction, we get a remainder of 0. So our answer is 8/10. 4/5 is equal to 8/10. That's called a terminating decimal because our remainder is 0. Now if we wanted to convert a decimal to a fraction, we would need to read our decimal with the place value, write the decimal as a fraction, and remember to reduce to the lowest terms. Here we have 25 hundredths. So you write it as a fraction, 25 over 100, and then you look to see if you can reduce it. And 25 and 100 can both be divided by 25. 25 divided by 5 is 1, and 100 divided by 25 is 4. So our decimal, 25 hundredths, is equal to 1/4 as a fraction. So to convert a decimal to a fraction, you simply read the decimal, write it as a fraction, and reduce it to lowest terms. Our next slide is looking at converting a fraction to a percent. Now to do a fraction to a percent, you first need to convert the fraction to a decimal. And again, we did this to convert to a decimal. We divide the numerator by the denominator, and then you can multiply the decimal by 100. Or we could also set up a proportion. So let's look at the first way. Again, we can do 5 into 4. We know we can't do it, so we add our decimal and 0. 5 fits into 40 8 times. We have a remainder of 8. And then we simply multiply 8/10 by 100, and we get 80%. So that's the first way. A second way is we could set up a proportion with 4/5 equaling n as our missing percent over 100. Because remember, percents and fractions both describe a ratio out of 100. And to do that, we would cross multiply or find their cross products, and 4 times 100 equals 5 times n. So we would get 400 equals 5n. And then we would just divide by 5 on both sides. 5 divided by 5 is 1, so they can cancel out, and you're left with n equaling 80. And then we simply express that 80 as a percent. So 80 over 100 equals 80%. So 2 ways to convert a fraction to a percent: by changing it to a decimal first and multiplying by 100, or simply setting up a proportion and solving for our missing number, our percentage. To convert a percent to a fraction, you're going to write the percent value as the numerator and the denominator as 100. So what we're going to do is 35% becomes our numerator of 35, and our denominator is our 100. And then we can remember to reduce to lowest terms if necessary, and we can divide 35 and 100 both by 5, and we get 7 over 20. So 35% can be expressed as the fraction 7/20. Our last one is converting a decimal to a percent and a percent to a decimal. So our first one, to convert a decimal to a percent, we have a shortcut. Remember, percents can be expressed as decimals, and decimals can be expressed as percents. Percent means part of 100 or hundredths. So say that we have 75 hundredths. Now the shortcut I'm going to teach you is we simply move the decimal place 2 places to the right to convert to a percent. 1, 2. So 75 hundredths equals 75%. And what we're doing here is we're multiplying the decimal by 100. Again, if we had 0.6 or 6/10 and we needed to move it 2 places to the right, 1, 2, we fill in the missing spot with a 0, and we get 60%. And that's the same as multiplying the decimal by 100. Now, to convert a percent to a decimal, we simply move the decimal point 2 places to the left, or divide the percentage by 100. So if we had 45% and we wanted to find its decimal, we would simply move the decimal point where, when it's hidden, it's at the end of our number, 1, 2, and 45% becomes 45 hundredths. Again, if we had 6%, we have our decimal point at the end of the number, move 1, 2, fill in our zeros if necessary, and 6% becomes 6 hundredths. So to convert from a decimal to a percent and a percent to a decimal, you're simply moving the decimal point either to the left or to the right, knowing you either need to multiply by 100 or divide by 100.